You were in Afghanistan in 2002, and you were called into a very remote section of Afghanistan because a patrol had basically gone...
Army veteran reveals the truth about the Kandahar giant. It's disturbing. What began as a routine mission in 2002 near Kandahar turned into something that doesn't fit any known report. Soldiers didn't just lose contact. They walked into an encounter that official records still refuse to explain. The mission that should have been routine. In spring 2002, during Operation Enduring Freedom, a standard patrol mission was assigned to a US infantry squad operating near Kandahar in southern Afghanistan. The objective was clear and routine: monitor insurgent supply routes moving through remote mountain paths and cave systems. These areas were known to be influenced by Taliban forces, but patrols like this had been conducted regularly without unusual disruption. The terrain, while difficult, was familiar to deployed units, consisting of steep ridges, narrow passes, and isolated cave networks. The squad moved into position following established routes, maintaining communication with command through standard radio protocols. For the first phase of the operation, nothing appeared out of the ordinary. Movement was steady, and environmental conditions were consistent with previous patrols in the region. This matters because the operation followed expected patterns, with no indication of immediate threat beyond normal engagement risk. There were no reports of contact, resistance, or unexpected obstacles during initial deployment. Then, the situation changed without warning. Communication from the unit stopped completely. There was no distress signal, no fragmented transmission, and no indication of equipment failure. The silence was immediate and total. This is where the shift becomes clear. In standard military operations, even under attack, some form of signal is usually transmitted. Here, there was nothing. No voice, no static, no trace of interruption. Command response escalated quickly. The last known coordinates were logged, and the absence of communication triggered a classified emergency response. The operation, which began as routine in spring 2002, was now reclassified due to unexplained loss of contact near Kandahar. That change in classification reflects the seriousness of the situation, where a standard patrol transitioned into an unresolved and high-risk incident with no immediate explanation. Arrival at the coordinates. Something is wrong. The recovery unit reached the last known position near Kandahar during 2002, expecting to find signs of engagement or movement. Instead, the area appeared disturbed in a way that did not match standard combat patterns. Pieces of gear were scattered across the rocky terrain, including fragments of tactical vests, damaged equipment, and broken supply packs. The distribution was irregular, suggesting forceful disruption rather than organized retreat. This matters because trained units do not abandon equipment in this manner without clear cause. Closer inspection revealed that the damage was not consistent with gunfire or explosive impact. Weapons were found bent or fractured, with parts separated under pressure rather than ballistic force. There were no bullet casings, no impact marks, and no signs of return fire. This absence is important. In a typical engagement, even brief contact leaves behind identifiable traces. Here, the environment showed disruption without evidence of a conventional fight. As the team expanded their search, they identified drag marks leading across the terrain. These marks were not aligned with foot movement or equipment transport. Instead, they formed irregular paths moving toward a nearby cave entrance. This is where the shift becomes clear. The scene suggested removal rather than escape, with no indication of resistance patterns normally associated with combat scenarios. The atmosphere of the area was also noted in field reports. Soldiers described the silence as abnormal, lacking ambient sound common to mountainous regions. No wildlife movement, no environmental noise, and no residual activity were observed. The location near Kandahar, active during Operation Enduring Freedom, had suddenly become still in a way that did not match surrounding conditions. That change in environment added to the conclusion that the situation did not follow any known operational pattern. The cave entrance. First signs of horror. The recovery team approached the cave entrance using standard protocols established during Operation Enduring Freedom. maintaining formation and controlled movement near Kandahar. Initial observation revealed debris concentrated at the entrance, including broken equipment and fragments of gear belonging to the missing US infantry squad. The placement of these items suggested that the disruption intensified closer to the cave, rather than occurring randomly across the terrain. Among the debris, soldiers identified damaged weapons with structural deformation. One of the most notable findings was an M4 rifle that had been bent and partially embedded into the rock surface. This matters because standard field conditions do not produce that level of damage. Weapons are designed to withstand impact and environmental stress. The force required to bend metal and drive it into stone exceeds typical combat scenarios. Further inspection confirmed the absence of expected indicators, such as explosive residue or ballistic impact. There were no signs of detonation, no burn patterns, and no fragmentation consistent with known weapons. This is where the shift becomes clear. The damage present at the site did not match any recognized form of engagement used by insurgent forces operating in 2002. The physical evidence pointed toward a different kind of force, acting on both equipment and environment. At this stage, the assessment changed from recovery to anomaly identification. The team recognized that the situation could not be explained through standard combat analysis. The cave, located near Kandahar, became the focal point of investigation, with all visible evidence directing attention inward. The conclusion at this stage was not based on speculation, but on observed inconsistencies that did not align with known operational conditions. The vanishing without a trace. As hours passed with no contact, the situation moved beyond communication failure into a full operational concern. By the end of the first 24 hours, Command confirmed that the US infantry squad had not re-established any signal from their last position near Kandahar. Standard recovery expectations were already exceeded. In most cases, missing units leave behind some form of trace, equipment, movement patterns, or signs of engagement. In this instance, none were detected. Aerial surveillance was deployed to scan the area, using reconnaissance assets active during Operation Enduring Freedom. These scans covered the exact coordinates where the unit was last tracked. The results showed no visible firefight, no displaced terrain, and no signs of bodies or equipment. This matters because even in high-intensity conflict zones, physical evidence is typically present. Here, the landscape appeared undisturbed, as if no encounter had taken place. This absence of evidence created a different kind of problem. Without signs of combat, there was no clear direction for recovery teams. The situation did not match known patterns of ambush or retreat. This is where the shift becomes clear. The lack of physical indicators suggested that whatever occurred did not follow conventional engagement scenarios. There was no visible cause, only disappearance. In response, military command authorized a high-risk recovery operation. An elite special forces unit was deployed to investigate the last known location of the squad. Their objective was not only recovery, but also identification of what had occurred in that specific area near Kandahar during 2002. The deployment marked a transition from search to investigation, where the absence of evidence became the central issue driving the operation forward. Inside the cave, evidence of something inhuman. The team moved deeper into the cave near Kandahar during 2002, expecting to locate remains from the missing US infantry squad. What they found instead was scattered human bone across the cave floor, extending far beyond the entrance. There was no pattern, no grouping, and no sign of burial. The remains appeared thrown or dragged into place, covering a wide area. This immediately stood out because even in chaotic combat zones, bodies and equipment usually remain within a defined space. The condition of the remains raised further concern. Skulls were crushed inward with force, rib cages torn apart, and long bones broken under pressure. These were not clean fractures or damage caused by gunfire. There were no bullet casings, no burn marks, and no fragmentation typically linked to explosives. The damage looked direct, as if applied through physical strength rather than weapons. That difference removed any link to known combat scenarios. Attention then turned to possible wildlife activity in the region. Predators found around Kandahar, including wolves and mountain species, were considered as a cause. However, the damage patterns did not match known feeding behavior. The bones showed signs of compression and tearing that exceeded what local animals are capable of producing. This narrowed the explanation further, leaving the team without a clear natural cause. The layout of the cave reinforced that uncertainty. The remains were not recent in a single cluster, but appeared layered, suggesting repeated activity over time. The space no longer resembled a temporary shelter or hiding point used during Operation Enduring Freedom. Instead, it showed signs of repeated use, where the same pattern of damage and distribution had occurred more than once. The moment it appeared. While the team continued documenting the interior, movement was detected deeper inside the cave near Kandahar during the same 2002 operation. The motion was slow and controlled, not random or environmental. As the team focused their attention, a figure stepped forward from the darker section of the cave. At first, the outline appeared human, but its size made that assumption difficult to maintain. The height of the figure was estimated between 13 feet and 15 feet, far exceeding any normal human scale. Its body structure appeared uneven, with elongated limbs and proportions that did not match standard anatomy. The figure's hair, described as pale with a reddish tone, remained visible even in low light. This detail separated it further from any known personnel or local population operating in the region. As the figure moved, its hands became clearly visible. Each hand appeared to have 6 fingers, a detail that remained consistent as it shifted position. This was not a visual error or distance issue. The structure was clear enough to confirm that it did not match normal human anatomy. That single feature removed any remaining doubt about misidentification. The figure was also holding a long object resembling a spear, sized in proportion to its height. Its posture was stable, and its grip on the object appeared controlled rather than unbalanced. The movement was deliberate, and the figure remained aware of the team's presence. At that point, the situation shifted from observation to direct contact with something that could not be matched to any known classification. The attack that changed everything. The encounter escalated without warning inside the cave near Kandahar during the same 2002 operation involving the recovery team. The figure did not hesitate or retreat. It moved forward instantly, closing distance in a way that left no time for standard response. One soldier, identified in reports as Dan, was struck within seconds of the movement beginning. The speed of the action stood out immediately. There was no build-up, no visible preparation, only direct engagement. The impact itself was decisive. The figure used the spear-like object it was holding, driving it through the soldier with a level of force that bypassed protective gear. This matters because military equipment is designed to absorb or deflect high-impact threats. In this case, the attack went through armor with no visible resistance. The motion was controlled and precise, not random or chaotic. The behavior did not match known animal patterns. Predators in regions around Kandahar do not engage in targeted strikes using tools or weapons. The movement showed awareness, direction, and intent. The attack focused on a single target first, isolating and eliminating before shifting attention. That pattern reflects decision-making rather than instinct. This distinction removed any remaining link to natural explanation. The team was forced into immediate close-range engagement. Distance inside the cave was limited, and the speed of the attack reduced reaction time. Standard formation broke instantly as soldiers shifted to defensive positions. The situation had changed from investigation to survival within seconds. The environment, already confined, became a factor that restricted movement and visibility during the response. 30 seconds of impossible combat. The response from the unit began immediately after the initial strike near Kandahar during 2002, with all available weapons brought into use at close range. Soldiers opened fire using M4 rifles, sidearms, and heavier support weapons. The confined space of the cave intensified the effect of each shot, but it also limited maneuverability. The engagement did not follow standard combat spacing. Everything happened within a compressed area. Among the weapons used was a Barrett .50 caliber rifle, typically deployed for long-range targets. Its use at close range indicates the level of threat the team assessed in real time. This matters because such equipment is not standard for confined engagements unless other options are insufficient. The decision to use it reflects the scale and resistance of the target. Despite sustained fire, the figure did not collapse immediately. Reports indicate that it continued moving under impact, absorbing multiple rounds before showing signs of failure. The duration of the engagement was approximately 30 seconds, but accounts describe it as significantly longer due to the intensity of the moment. Time perception under stress does not alter sequence, but it reflects the difficulty of the encounter. The level of force required to bring the figure down exceeded expectations for any known target. Standard engagement protocols are designed around predictable outcomes when sufficient firepower is applied. In this case, the response required escalation beyond those expectations. The combination of weapon types, sustained fire, and proximity created a scenario that did not align with known combat patterns, leaving the outcome defined more by persistence than immediate effect. What happened after the kill? Following the engagement inside the cave near Kandahar during the 2002 operation, the situation shifted immediately from combat to containment. According to accounts, the body of the figure was secured by the recovery unit and prepared for extraction. This process was not handled as a standard casualty recovery. Instead, specialized transport was reportedly called to remove the remains from the site. This matters because battlefield procedures typically follow established protocols, but this response appeared separate from normal operations. The area was then placed under strict control. Reports indicate that the location was locked down with access restricted and the site cleared of remaining evidence. This included removal of equipment, remains, and any visible trace of the encounter. The operation transitioned from recovery to containment, suggesting that the priority was no longer investigation but control of information. This distinction reflects a shift in how the incident was being managed. What followed further reinforced that change. There was no official statement released regarding the incident, no acknowledgement from the Department of Defense, and no record entered into public military documentation tied to Operation Enduring Freedom. This absence is important because events involving loss of personnel are typically documented, even under classified conditions. In this case, there was no visible trace within formal reporting structures. Accounts also indicate that individuals involved in the operation were restricted from discussing the event. Some were reassigned, while others remained anonymous in later references. The combination of controlled extraction, restricted access, and absence of official record suggests that the incident was handled outside standard reporting channels, leaving no formal acknowledgement of what occurred near Kandahar. The truth. They tried to bury. Information about the incident did not remain completely contained. Over time, details began to appear through indirect channels, particularly within military-related forums and anonymous accounts connected to 2002 deployments. These reports were not officially verified, but they shared consistent elements regarding location, sequence, and outcome. This matters because independent accounts rarely align without a common reference point. Researchers reviewing these accounts noted overlapping details tied to Kandahar, including the environment, the cave system, and the nature of the encounter. While no physical evidence was released publicly, the consistency across separate testimonies created a pattern that could not be easily dismissed as isolated fabrication. The absence of documentation did not eliminate the presence of narrative, it shifted it outside official channels. The lack of material evidence remains a central factor. No photographs, no recovered samples, and no verified records have been made public. This places the entire incident within the category of testimony rather than confirmed documentation. However, the structure of these testimonies follows a consistent timeline connected to Operation Enduring Freedom, reinforcing their internal alignment. The broader implication extends beyond a single event. If the accounts are accurate, they suggest the presence of something not currently classified within known biological or environmental categories. The absence of confirmation does not resolve the question. Instead, it leaves the incident positioned between recorded history and unverified account, with its details preserved only through indirect sources linked to the events near Kandahar. What happened near Kandahar in 2002 was never officially recorded, yet the details remain consistent. If even part of it is true, then something was encountered and quietly removed from history.